start, sit plenty of tough calls in Week 17. Every week, our friends at Bruno Boys Fantasy Football take a look at every NFL game on the slate and offer up their recommendations of players to start or sit, based on that week's matchups. This week is the toughest of them all, with several teams having little incentive to go out to win. As always, fantasy owners are encouraged to absorb as much information as possible to make an informed decision for their teams. Fantasy rankings: how the players stack up at each position in Week 17. Vikings RB Jerick McKinnon. While McKinnon's role has reduced recently, he remains a dual threat. He has totaled 189 yards from scrimmage over the last 2 games and burned the Bears earlier in the season. McKinnon went for 146 total yards and a score against Chicago. Patriots RB Dion Lewis. Lewis has emerged as the Patriots' top running back over the last 8 weeks. He ran for 129 yards and scored 2 touchdowns in a Week 16 victory against the Buffalo Bills. Lewis had 52 yards and a touchdown against the Jets in Week 6. Redskins QB Kirk Cousins. He threw for 299 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Denver Broncos, giving him multiple touchdown games in 5 of his last 6. He passed for 242 passing yards and 2 TDs earlier this season against the Giants. Eagles RB Jerick. Ajayi continues to lead the Eagles' backfield in touches. Entering Week 16, Ajayi was averaging 6.4 yards per carry as a member of the Eagles. The last time he faced the Cowboys, he had 91 yards on 7 carries. Ajayi is a threat for 100-plus yards. Steelers Jesse James. He had 10 receptions in Week 14 and is one of QB Ben Roethlisberger's favorite targets in the red zone. Look for him to be heavily targeted against the Browns. He torched Cleveland for 6 receptions, 41 yards and 2 touchdowns in Week 1. Lions QB Matthew Stafford. Stafford completed 19 of 35 passes and tossed only 1 touchdown in a Week 16 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. But he should rebound nicely against a Packers secondary that has allowed 27 passing touchdowns. The last time Stafford took on Green Bay, he torched them for 361 yards and 2 touchdown strikes. Bills Charles Clay. Clay had 4 receptions for 37 yards on a team-high 10 targets in Week 16. He was a dropped pass away from adding a touchdown to his total. Look for him to post better totals against a Dolphins team he had 5 receptions for 68 yards against in a Week 15 victory. Panthers RB Christian McCaffrey. The rookie has 1,032 total yards, 75 receptions and 7 total touchdowns. The last time McCaffrey faced the Falcons, he finished with 94 total yards and a score. Ravens RB Alex Collins. He had 18 carries for 51 rushing yards in a Week 16 victory and chipped in 15 yards on 3 receptions. He has double-figure carries in 11 consecutive games and is in line for another 15-20 touches against the Bengals' 31st Street-ranked run defense. Saints RB Alvin Kamara. The rookie has cooled after an incredible 6-week stretch, but he's still explosive. The last time Kamara took on the Bucs, he had 68 rushing yards, 84 receiving yards and found the end zone twice. He can score from anywhere on the field. Chargers QB Philip Rivers. Rivers finished with 290 yards and a touchdown pass in a 14-7 victory against the New York Jets last weekend. He has at least 1 TD pass in 12 consecutive games, and he picked apart the Raiders' secondary in Week 6. Chiefs Travis Kelce. Kelce found the end zone for the 8th time in Week 16. The veteran continues to be in the debate for the best tight end in the NFL and should put a positive stamp on a fine 2017 season against a Broncos defense against which he had 7 receptions, 133 yards and a touchdown earlier this season. 49ers RB Carlos Hyde. Hyde had 73 total yards on 24 touches and found the end zone in a Week 16 victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look for the running back to continue his pace against a Rams defense that struggles against the run. He had 84 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns against them in Week 3. Seahawks Jimmy Graham. He has a nice track record against the Cardinals, including 2 touchdown receptions in a Week 10 victory. Graham might not get a bunch of targets, but look for Russell Wilson to dial up his name in the red zone. Bears RB Jordan Howard. Howard averaged 2 yards per carry in Week 16, but his 2 touchdowns against the Cleveland Browns saved the day. Things won't be easy against a Vikings defense that is one of the best against the run and held Howard to 76 rushing yards in Week 5. Jets Robbie Anderson. After an impressive 6-game stretch, Anderson has cooled off. He has 118 receiving yards and no touchdowns over his last 3 games. With the Jets using Bryce Petty at quarterback, the upside from Anderson remains low. Giants QB Eli Manning. Manning struggled in the Giants' shutout loss to the Arizona Cardinals, turning the football over 3 times. The last time Manning faced the Redskins, they held him to a season-low 113 passing yards and picked him off. Cowboys Jason Witten. The veteran continues to be a consistent target in the passing attack, but he's running into a buzzsaw in Week 17. The Eagles limited Witten to 1 reception for 7 yards in Week 11, and he can't be trusted this week. Browns RB Duke Johnson Jr. He had 7 receptions for 81 yards in Week 16 and has a career-high 68 receptions this season. But the Steelers have a top 5 defense and limited him to 2 receptions for 20 yards in Week 1. Packers Randall Cobb. The Packers have nothing to play for and their wide receivers are getting injured by the minute. While Cobb is the best of the healthy players, he'll likely be heavily defended. Dolphins QB Jay Cutler. 2 weeks ago, Buffalo intercepted Cutler 3 times and kept him out of the end zone. With nothing to play for, you can expect another lackluster performance from Cutler. Falcons RB Devonta Freeman. After scoring in back-to-back weeks, Freeman was limited to 36 rushing yards in a Week 16 loss to the New Orleans Saints. Though it's tough to shy away from the dynamic playmaker, the matchup isn't right. The Panthers have one of the better run defenses and held Freeman to 46 rushing yards in Week 9. Bengals QB Andy Dalton. He has hit rock bottom the last 3 weeks, with 2 touchdown passes against 4 turnovers during that span. When he took on the Ravens in Week 1, he had 170 passing yards and 5 turnovers. Buccaneers RB Doug Martin. He had 6 rushing attempts in Week 16 and played all of 17 snaps. Tampa Bay is ready to move on from him, and you can't expect anything to change against a Saints team that limited him to 7 yards on 8 carries in Week 9. Raiders Jared Cook. Cook has been hit or miss throughout the season, and entering Week 16 he had 2 or fewer receptions in 4 of his last 5 games. In a Week 6 loss to the Chargers, Cook was limited to 2 receptions for 14 yards. Broncos Demaryius Thomas. Without consistent quarterback play, his skill set has been wasted. He has the matchup to top 100 yards, but can you trust a wideout with 1 TD in his last 5 games? Rams Cooper Kupp. The rookie had 65 yards and a TD in a victory against the Tennessee Titans. But the 49ers limited him to 2 catches for 17 yards in Week 3 and should be able to contain him again. Cardinals RB Kerwin Williams. He continues to get the bulk of the carries, but Williams didn't record a touch in the last meeting with Seattle, when Arizona managed only 34 yards on 24 carries. Williams' upside is limited this week,